Hello boys and girls, welcome to Mrs. Bandu's Math Movies. This is lesson 3-3 for course 2, adding and subtracting mixed numbers. Our objectives are to add and subtract mixed numbers and solve problems involving mixed numbers. Okay, we're just going to go ahead and start with examples because we'll be using some of the concepts that we've already talked about, so they're not brand new, we're just going to apply them now. So, our first question is, you are training for a race. You run 2 3/5 miles in the morning, 1 4/5 miles in the afternoon. What is your total mileage? Okay, so they have the problem set up for us here. Actually, a lot of times I do like to stack my problems vertically. In some cases, we'll see further down that is done for us a little more. In this case, since we have common denominators, it's just as easy not to. We'll add our fractions because they have like denominators. So 3 plus 4 gives me 7/5, and then 2 plus 1 is 3. So I get 3 7/5. However, 7/5 is an improper fraction, and remember, we don't want to leave numbers as improper fractions. We can write 7/5 as 1 2/5. A quick reminder, if you have an improper fraction, remember it's numerator divided by denominator. 5 goes into 7 one time. You have a remainder of 2. So that gives me the answer 1 2/5, which is my mixed number here. So basically what you do then is go back and add the 3 to the 1 2/5. Now we add our whole number. 3 plus 1 is 4. There's no fraction to add to the 2/5, so it's 4 2/5. So the total mileage is 4 2/5. Quite honestly, some of you are going to be able to do some of this in your head. Once you're comfortable with the procedure, and generally if the numbers are small enough, you're probably going to be able to do some of this conversion. Many of you are going to be able to do 3 7/5 straight to 4 2/5 in your head. In the meantime, or if you're not comfortable with this, please be sure to write it out so that you understand what you're doing and where your numbers are coming from. Okay, in example 2, we're dealing with different denominators. We want to add 5 1/2 plus 3 2/3. An estimate here that the authors did for us, 5 1/2 is close to 5 or 6, and I would have probably rounded it to 6. And 3 2/3 is close to 4. So my answer here should be around 9 or 10. Again, if you follow the rounding rules, really it should have been 10. Okay, because I have fractions to add here, I need to think of the least common denominator for 2 and 3. Since 2 and 3 are both prime, I can just multiply them together, and I know that my least common denominator is going to be 6. So I'm going to write an equivalent fraction for each fraction with a denominator of 6. Okay, 2 times 3 is 6. 1 times 3 is 3. So that gives me 5 3/6. Didn't change my whole number at all. 3 times 2 is 6. 2 times 2 is 4. So that gives me 3 4/6. Now I go ahead and add these together. 3 plus 4 is 7 for my numerator. My denominator is 6. My whole number is 8. So 8 7/6 is what I get. 7/6 is going to give me 1 1/6. Again, 7 divided by 6 is 1 with a remainder of 1. So that gives me that numerator divided by 6. So 8 plus 1 7/6 is 9 1/6. So I'll add my whole numbers to get the 9, and then my answer, my fraction is now 1/6. Oh, I wrote a 7 here. I apologize. I should have written a 1. Go back and change that if you followed me and wrote the wrong thing. Okay, this gives me 1 1/6. 8 plus 1 1/6 is 9 1/6. So the answer, 9 1/6, is close to the estimate of 9 that the book got, or 10 that we might have gotten if we followed our strict rules. So it's reasonable. Moving on to our next example, it is a subtraction with renaming. Some people would also call renaming borrowing. Okay, so you bought 6 1/4 feet of rope and used 4 3/8 feet. How many feet of rope do you have left? And it gives us some multiple choice answers. Okay, so basically what we're going to do here is we want to subtract, because we're starting out with 6 1/4 and using 4 3/8. So the first thing we need to do is write equivalent fractions using the least common denominator. Again, 4 goes into 8, so that's going to allow me to use 8 as my least common denominator. So 4 times 2 is 8, 1 times 2 is 2. So I rename that as 6 2/8 minus 4 3/8. Okay, the problem is, though, when I'm subtracting here, I don't want to get a negative value. 2 minus 3 I know I could do, but I don't want to get a negative value for my numerator of a fraction if I have a mixed number. So what we do is rename or borrow from the 6 2/8. So 6 2/8, you can think of that as 5 1 2/8. Here is the 5 plus 1 gives you the 6. The 2/8 is what was already there. At this point, we take this new mixed number and write it as an improper fraction. Remember, it's the denominator times the whole number, so 8 times 1 is 1, plus 2 gives me 10. So after we rename this as 5 10/8. In class, I'll also go over another way of doing this, which is basically the same thing, maybe a slightly different thought process, but I will save that and go over it in class so that as we're going through this, we can ask, you all can ask questions as well. I'll stick with the format from the book at the time being. So now I'm going to use the 5 10/8 here, and now I can subtract. 10 minus 3 is 7. I keep my denominator of 8, and 5 minus 4 is 1. Okay, so you have 1 7/8 feet of rope left. The correct answer is choice C. So again, definitely in class, you want to ask me, Mrs. Bandu, show me the other slightly different approach to this. It's the same thought process, but maybe not writing it out quite exactly the same way. Okay. In the meantime, if you would please complete the quick checks before class, before we meet again. I look forward to seeing you. Please, please, please be sure to bring in any questions you might have. Bye now.